It's time for business. Yuka's joined us in studio. Great to see you.
Hi, Mark.
A first of its kind digital payment platform has been launched here in Europe. Tell us all about it.
Well, Mark, it's a digital wallet called Wero that enables person-to-person cross-border payments instantly. It's been launched in France, Germany and Belgium in partnership with 16 major European banks, including BNP Paribas, Société Générale and Deutsche Bank. The service operates like a direct debit between banks at no additional cost. Users will be able to send and receive money using a phone number, email address, or app-generated QR code. It's billed as a sovereign payment alternative without having to rely on credit card services like Visa or MasterCard or tech giant systems such as Apple Wallet, Google Pay, and PayPal. And it also aligns with the Eurozone's banking sector's strategy for unity.
A lot of market share has gone to Apple Pay and PayPal, and the idea for banks is to regain sovereignty over digital payments by offering a smooth mobile application for customers.
The question I asked was, could I use it to send money to the UK to my kids? Yuka's informed me no, because of course the UK is no longer in Europe. There we go, EU as it were. Brexit, eh? There we go. Here in France, inflation's come down a long way, but prices of dairy products up a lot.
Yeah, first on the inflation, the EU harmonised inflation rate in France fell to 1.5% in September, the lowest in more than 3 years, and much less than expected. But the price of butter hit an all-time high last month, nearly doubling from a year earlier to about €8,200 per tonne. An epidemic among cows has affected production, coupled with a decision by dairy giant Lactalis to voluntarily lower output in response to a negotiated hike in the unit price of milk, made the ingredient much more expensive. Jenny Shin and our colleagues at France 2 have this.
It's the king ingredient of pastries. To ensure the best quality of his goods, this baker Arnaud buys his butter directly from Normandy.
I use about 1.5 tons of butter a year to make my croissant, pain au chocolat and brioche.
But it's an increasingly expensive commodity. Arnaud is forced to spend a whopping €5,000 more on butter this year.
Good butter and good ingredients come at a cost. To make good bread, you need good butter. I'll have to burden a part of the increased prices, but unfortunately, so will the client too.
But just how much of an increase is too much?
It doesn't bother me much. I'll still come to buy pastries here.
I think €2 upwards, it starts to get a bit expensive.
On the wholesale market, butter is reaching record prices at nearly €8,200 per tonne, roughly a 92% increase over a year. This due in part to an epidemic of blue tongue outbreaks. Here at this farm, 1 in 5 cows have been affected by the disease.
The cow here is the worst affected. Look, she's struggling to get up. Her limbs are pretty stiff.
And as many as 20 cows making milk unsuitable for consumption signals bad news for supply.
We lost more than 10,000 litres of milk in September, then 12,000 litres in August. That's more than 20% of production loss.
The drop in production is forcing manufacturers to resort to international markets. In the meantime, the price of butter on supermarket shelves will not be affected until the next annual pricing negotiations in early 2025.
Next, container traffic on the US East Coast and Gulf Coast could be severely disrupted. Yuka's going to tell us why.
Well, Mark, do you remember the huge queues formed by ships trying to enter ports after the post-COVID economic reopening back in 2022? Well, a similar situation could happen soon in the United States, as workers at 14 major US ports are poised to go on strike unless they reach agreement on a new labour contract. The talks are currently at an impasse and the stoppage could begin at midnight. New York governor warned of significant supply disruptions but called on people not to rush to grocery stores as no shortage of essential goods are expected anytime soon.
The potential for disruption is significant. We've not had an event occur like this in our ports since 1977, and that lasted 12 days. We're deeply concerned about the impact that a strike could have on our supply chains, especially when it comes to critical goods like medical supplies and others.
And the minute you could, of course, you say to someone, don't rush to the shops, they all rush to the shops. So that's going to be our next story tomorrow, I imagine, on this one, of course. We're watching for developments. OK, next then, Chinese stocks have had their best day in years this Monday on more stimulus measures.
Shares in Shanghai rose more than 8% this Monday, marking their biggest single-day gains in almost 16 years. The benchmark Shanghai Composite closed up 8%, while the blue-chip CSI 300 index rose 8.5%. Hong Kong also advanced 2.4%, following the announcement of more stimulus measures. Chinese shares have gained more than 21% since last Tuesday, when Beijing began rolling out measures to support the economy, including rate cuts. On Sunday, China's central bank asked banks to lower interest rates on existing mortgages, and major cities like Guangzhou and Shanghai moved to ease restrictions on home purchases. The struggling property sector has been a major drag on China's overall economic performance over the past couple of years. Meanwhile, European automaker shares tumbled this Monday following sharp profit warnings from Stellantis and Aston Martin. Both car makers lowered their financial outlook for the year and joined other European peers in flagging a difficult environment in the world's largest car market, China, as well as increased competition from Chinese car makers and supply chain issues. And the poor performance by the auto sector weighed on overall European indices. London ended the last day of September down 1%. Paris dropped 2%, while Frankfurt closed down 0.75 percentage point. Even as fresh data showed, inflation in the country dropped more than expected in September to just 1.8%, below the European Central Bank's 2% target. Wall Street is also pulling back from record levels. As you can see, the Dow Jones down by about 0.5 percentage point, the S&P down 0.25 percentage point, the Nasdaq down by about 0.33%.
Yuka Roy, thank you very much indeed. Great to see Yuka there with all the business.